And formally, thank you for bringing the corner table here to the Palm, David Cassidy.
Thank you.
You've got what, the seafood salad?
Well, I have a mixed seafood salad, which is calamari and scallops and shrimp, and the seafood here at the Palm is quite extraordinary, I think.
It's not all
I'm not used to talking about food, but now that we're
talking about
food, it's great.
Well,
you have to forgive me because I had to start.
No, start. Here, I'm going to have some too. I've got a crab meat cocktail. You know, those things that crawl around on the beach when you're on vacation?
It's great.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask you, finish up on what we were talking about Las Vegas, right? Okay. If you could go back to any great Vegas show you've seen, anybody in the showroom, just replay one night of a night you had in Las Vegas watching somebody on stage, where would you like to be? Who would you like to see?
Well, for me, I would probably have to go back to someone I never saw. But
who's that?
I've read a lot about him because at the time he died, I was out touring around, and in fact, shortly after we met in 1972.
72.
Right.
We've known each other a couple of years there, yeah.
Well, I was, in fact, your first interview, was I not?
My first interview on my first talk show that I ever did, called Sudden Exposure with Bill Boggs, was with David Cassidy. And I'm coming full circle today. I'm retiring after this interview. No, you were the first one. I caught up with you at the Greensboro Coliseum. You were performing in that white knit outfit.
No, it wasn't knit. I never got into knit, okay? Let's be very
It wasn't like
specific.
knitted by fans?
No, knit. Knit was definitely not part of my, garb.
But it was white.
It was white.
And
yeah,
it was
like a, yeah.
We'll talk about the Teen Idol days later. So who would you like to have seen from 1972 when you?
Bobby Darin.
Bobby Darin.
Bobby Darin. I'm a big fan of Bobby Darin.
Great.
When I was about 9, 10, I got Mac the Knife, and I had an album while I was listening to Hendrix and Clapton and all that stuff in the 60s. Of course, we got Motown, and you could listen to one hit radio station, and you'd get the gamut.
All that great music.
All that great music, from really serious rock to very light pop, soul, swing, and all that other stuff, and occasionally, like, Sinatra had hits in the 60s, Strangers in the Night.
That's Life.
That's Life.
One of my all-time favorite songs.
Right. And
but Bobby Darin was a real bridge between rock and roll and the standards.
Exactly. So when he started with Splish Splash, I kind of liked Splish Splash, but I was really a big fan when he did Beyond the Sea, Mac the Knife, Up the Lazy River, and all that stuff. And I've always been a big fan of big band. And my dad, I guess, had a lot to do with that.
Jack Cassidy?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that dad.
That's the dad, yes. Well, let's talk about music. You have a new CD. I love it. It's called Old Trick, New Dog. And on the liner notes, you say, the artist formerly referred to as David Cassidy.
Formerly known as.
Formerly known as. Now, wit, there's a lot in wit on the subconscious level. Why did you choose to have that on the liner notes? Why did you want somebody to read the artist formerly known as David Cassidy?
I just thought it was so absurd. Anybody that would possibly get to a point of being so successful that one could actually have the arrogance to say.
So you're making the joke on Prince.
Well, I love Prince, but I gotta ask him, like, what are you thinking? He's that symbol guy.
Yeah, he's the artist with the symbol. So it's a joke on Prince, and it's nothing to do with you trying to deny your past or anything like that.
No, not at all.
No, because you got great fans. Well, what?
I also redid
three
old songs. I Think I Love You, I Woke Up in Love This Morning, I Can Feel Your Heartbeat. So, for me, it has nothing to do with that. To be honest with you, Bill, I was in the middle of doing 10 shows a week at the MGM Grand.
FX, yeah.
For 2.5 years. I was recording in the daytime. I was doing 2 shows a night over there. And on my day off, I was flying to Los Angeles where I was producing a television series. So,
it's like the old days.
Well, it was a little schizophrenic.
It's like the old days for you.
So I have no idea who wrote those liner notes. In fact, I went back and reread them about a week ago, and I thought, Jesus, did I write that?
Well, it's excellent. It's a soulful album. It's got R&B. It's got pared down stuff. How's it doing? Do you feel that it's getting the airtime that it deserves?
Well, the answer is no, because I don't think any artist believes
ever gets
they
enough.
Get enough.
Yeah.
But the good news is that we've had a hit. Hopefully we're going to have another 2 or 3. And critically, I think it's been as well received as anything I've ever done.
Very, very good reviews.
Yeah. I'm really happy with it. I mean, the fact that a lot of my old fans and stuff have bought it, and also a lot of people that never thought, I think, that I was capable of making a record like that. And I still call them records, as you still do.
Yeah, but we're supposed to call them CDs.
Well,
I know.
no, actually you're not.
No?
Because, well, no, in truth, it's just a format. So
That's true.
it still is an album, or it still is a record.
Yeah.
And we still call it the record business.
The music business.
I don't
Music
call-
business is tough business. Yeah, it's really tough.
Really?
Really
Is
tough
it now,
business.
Bill?
No,
Tell
I'm
me
not
about the
even in
music
it.
business, Bill.
I'm not even in it. But I would think that from your standpoint, you know, to get in the studio, to do an album for the first time in 7 years,
Yeah.
to try to define what you're doing, because even going all the way back, you were a rocker when you had to play bubblegum music. So,
Right.
you know, and that there's a certain amount of that stays with you. You have a loyal fan base in the demographic that buys a lot of records. So you're in a position where you can make an album that CD, whatever, that could sell.
Yeah, well, you know, that was kind of my thinking when I went and did it, but more than anything else, I had collected enough songs, having worked, I love to play live, I love to entertain, which is part of the reason why I love living in Las Vegas, is that the best entertainers are here all the time.
Yeah.
And to make it here, you have to be the best. They expect the best. When people go to New York, a lot of people, tourists do go to Broadway shows, but the percentage is maybe 5%. People come here.
They go to shows.
The number one reason they come to Las Vegas is not gambling, it's entertainment. The number two reason is shopping. Gambling's the third reason why people come here now. Because the entertainment is so amazing.
A couple of things. You live here now. You ever tempted to really get into gambling, or is it just something that other people are doing that you just kind of pass them as they're doing it?
Hang on, let me see. You got that Keno thing for me? Kidding. Joking. I'm not somebody, I have no problem with it. I have gone out and played a little bit, but
What's your favorite game when you like to go out and play? See if I can. Baccarat. Oh, the big high rollers. That's what they always do. Me, I'm still pulling the slot machine. You know, putting the 50 cents in the slot machine.
for me, there's no entertainment in pushing a button.
Yeah.
You know, there is a sense, I mean, it's all a game of chance. And when you view it like that, I've just never been anybody who is that serious about it.
I actually like video poker. But
you do?
Yeah.
Well, I understand it's a very addictive pastime. I haven't.
I broke away for lunch, so that's the best I can say. Tell me a little bit about what it was like doing FX. I mean, you starred in the biggest grossing Vegas show for 2 years, 2 shows a night, tremendously physically taxing.
Yeah.
But take us behind the scenes. What's the craziest thing that happened
Well,
during the course of that big production?
Did you notice? Did you notice the way I was limping coming in here?
Yes, I noticed you're wearing like a boot on your foot, and I know you've had a serious foot operation, nerve removed from your foot.
Right.
Don't tell me that has something to do with FX for 2 years.
Well, it's a steel stage in order to support those gigantic sets.
A steel stage.
Steel, like cement,
Jesus.
because it doesn't give. And when you're on it, pounding on it night after night after night,
Yeah.
show after show, I did almost 1,000 shows. It took its toll, and the last few months were very, very painful for me, so I had to get out of it. But FX is the most complicated show that's ever been created. I mean, the technology involved in it is unbelievable, and it's also the most dangerous show for that reason.
Because they're taking you up in things.
Well, it's one thing when you're acting on a stage with actors,
Yeah.
or if you're on the stage with musicians.
Which
You
you've
know.
done with Olivier.
Oh, well,
Yes,
yeah.
you're in London with that, but now you're in Vegas doing
Well,
FX.
FX, or I was doing FX until
Yeah.
very recently. Yeah, I just found it to be out of your control. When the technology dies and the effects do die, like there are dragons in the show, I'm supposed to go out there and slay dragons. Well, if the dragon doesn't work,
It's a pre-slayed dragon.
it's a dead dragon. So I'm out there I'm talking about a week, 10 shows, slaying a dead dragon. Feeling like an absolute moron. You know, but you gotta do it.
You got to
So,
kill the dragon.
you
The
you
show must go on.
And I started, of course, riffing on the dragon because the dragon was dead. And it was, lifeless, sitting there. It wasn't moving. It wasn't breathing fire at me. So as this dead dragon, I was, playing possum on me, huh?
Let's go back a little bit. Look at some of the teen groups that are really in there now, like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Hanson. What kind of advice do you want to give to them about longevity? Because you're a man who's had a tremendous resilient career. You're still here 30 years later.
Well,
what do you want to say to those guys about sticking around for a while?
You know, if you're in this business, you have to assume that people have talent. How much talent you have and the ability to be resilient, I think internally, for me, I always knew that what I did that people became fans of mine for was a very small part of what I was able to do and I believed I could do creatively and artistically.
Right. There's still a lot of depth beyond that
if
one.
I was just a pop singer, for instance, I probably would have, after I walked away from it, that probably would have been it. A lot of it comes from the fact as an actor and as a producer and as a writer, I've been able to take and find the opportunities and create the opportunities for myself. And I think that had a lot to do with it. And that I didn't rely upon one. When I wasn't happening in one arena, I was doing something creatively and I never got...
In another.
I can't say I never got discouraged because of course I did. Everybody does.
Well, we talk about that later. So what would you say to those guys? What would you say to them if they're interested in having long careers? What's a word of advice to Hanson from David Cassidy?
Learn to surf.
Learn to surf?
I think for them, they need to go to school. They need to go to college and get something else going because when you start to become successful at such a young age, I mean, I was 19.
I know.
Those guys are like 11, 12, 13.
Yeah, true.
You know, they got schooling to go through, finish school, get a good education, decide what it is, in fact, that you want to do, and if you're really good, let it all blow over, and then recreate yourself if there is something else to recreate. You know, if you have a real gift and a real talent, that will always survive. The talent does survive. Whether or not the fad or the thing, people mostly ask me this question about Leo DiCaprio because of, I guess, the similarities from film and television and popularity and all that mania.
The mania surrounding him, sure.
And I think that when you do something that has such an enormous impact on generation, as me with the Partridge Family and with what he's done now at Titanic, we forget though that he's been on a television show. He was on a television series for a number of years. And that was a kind of a kid's show, a family show. He's a very good actor, and you have to just, you know, trust your instinct is the basic advice, which is don't allow the agents and managers and lawyers and people that are influencing you to influence you to such a degree to where you're not able to do the work that you know and believe in your heart is the work you want to do that's going to stimulate you, that you can be your best.
Well put. Absolutely. Very well put. Well, I want to take a break. We'll take a break, but first, when we come back, I want you to tell me now, when you see these things, Tiger Beat 16 magazine, pictures of you like this on the back, how do you feel?
I feel like an absolute moron right now, Bill. Can I tell you?
All right, we'll put them away.
You could be putting those away.
Talk to them. Talk about this later. We'll take a little break.
Actually, I have a shot of you in the shower at the gym back in school. If you just mind, I'm going to just reach into my pocket here. I brought it. It's a little something that a friend of Bill's, actually, not really a friend of Bill's.
Let's go to the videotape on that. We'll be back right after this. We're at the Palm in Las Vegas. David Cassidy, you have a rather large crustacean there, I would say.
I'd say it's rather large, but as it's kind of known for that, this, of course, is... Whoa, whoa, look out. Whoa. Come on.
They didn't cook that part.
Look out. Ow! Ow! Look out! Look out!
Get back.
Very scary here at the Palm.
And I've got the...
Now, this is what I'm calling a serious claw.
That's a claw.
Yeah, baby.
How much is this? Like a 4-pounder? 5-pounder?
It's, I asked for 3, but it looks like it's probably
I think they,
4.
knowing you're David Cassidy and the fact that you brought us here. Well, I've got the 302-pound steak.
In fact, that is a...
Goodbye. Oh.
Yeah, beautiful. So, the television magic.
It's been shelled.
Oh, they gave me the... See, this is a little smaller and more manageable here.
Do you eat beef at all?
I don't.
Because you have a pretty healthy diet.
Well, I don't eat any red meat. I haven't eaten red meat for about 25 years. I had my gallbladder out when I was 21, and from that time on, really, I just stopped. I just
Totally.
couldn't
Well, you look like you're in tremendous shape, so something's obviously
Pretty
working.
good shape, you know.
Yeah.
Old guy, I'm doing all right.
Indeed. Well, let's go back, time machine back to the teen idol days when I first actually encountered you in 1972. You were doing the Partridge
Bill,
Family.
let's take that walk down
Let's
memory lane
down
together,
memory
shall we?
lane.
Yes, Bill.
Were you ever in any physical danger with all the hysteria surrounding
yes, Bill.
you? Yeah.
Of course.
Tell me one time.
Well, at one time, I mean,
What comes to mind?
Every day was physical danger, only because it was so out of control. You know, teenagers with their emotions. You have to remember, it's so difficult to put it back in its perspective, its proper perspective, because the audience was so unsophisticated in comparison to what audiences are today.
That is a very interesting point.
Well, it's absolutely
just wild mania innocence.
Well, no one could actually believe, I guess, that I was real.
Yeah.
That I could actually, be there.
Appear in public.
Because remember, this is before video.
Yeah.
This is where anybody had a VCR, and if you weren't in front of the television set at 8:30 on a Friday night, you missed it. And apparently, what I've heard from Generation people or two, that they religiously sat there
To watch
and
the
waited
part?
to watch the show.
So when you appeared on weekends during a very intense schedule, and there, when I first encountered you in Greensboro at the Coliseum, there was mania. I mean, did you ever get pressed against the wall? Did you ever think, this is it? I'm going to get my back broken. They're crushing me. I'm finished. Goodbye.
Many of those thoughts went through my head, but more of it was they're more concerned with them because they were out of control, and I had to bring a lot of security with me, not just for me but for them. In the end, when I was doing the stadiums, it got so out of control that I later talked to John Lennon about this, and the reason they stopped, the Beatles stopped touring, it became such an ordeal just to get in and out of a building, to get in and out of a town, that it just turned into chaos. With police escorts and going through the backs, and you have to hide everything, and you have to screen all the people that come into your room. It just turned.
So
into,
Lennon and you had a real
we became
partnership in terms of what you certainly had,
we
had
certainly had a
experienced.
lot in common in terms of the experience, and I think that was one of the things. I mean, for me, musically, I was 13 when those guys broke, so
Right.
they had an enormous influence on me, as they did on many people on the planet.
Lots of people.
I got to know him quite well, and I guess sharing that experience probably was a good conduit,
But those same crazy fans from then are a wonderful fan base today. If you really look at the people who are out there supporting you. Have you saved any of those costumes? You have them?
In fact, Bill, I have them with me right now. Can I?
I have to. I got it here. I have to get it out. I know it's painful, but I think it's here. Yes, this is it. Where is this costume?
I have that costume. That was the very first costume I think that was made for me.
You sure it's not knitted?
No, it's not knitted. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
We're talking stretch polyester.
So now what's will there be a museum, or are these just going to stay in the closet for a while?
They stay in the closet, so to speak, Bill. I, of course, am not in the closet, but they stay in the closet.
No, you're definitely, no question,
Out
you
of
are
the closet.
out of the closet. What's the craziest thing you ever remember them making you do in those days in terms of posing with things for these teen magazines?
I spent every lunch hour either on the phone or both. On the phone with wherever I was going to speak to the local promoter or the television or the
Right.
radio station to talk about coming into their town. And then I would go and do photo sessions every single lunch hour.
Photo sessions, posing with things.
All over the world. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands.
And you're 21 years old. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Amazing.
19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah.
Now, let's leave the teen years behind. You have had a period which you call the dark period in your life. You were actually, according to what I've read, you were one of the highest paid stars. At one point, you were down to $2,000 in cash. You had about $800,000 in debt. Became a bit of a recluse, sleeping on friends' couches. How far down did it get, and what did you hold on to that made you be able to come back? Because there's a lot to be learned for everybody who's watching, who's downsized, who's going through a bad divorce, who thinks they can't climb out of the darkness. And you did it.
Yeah, and I have to say that, being somebody I think who is innately resilient, I think I had a very strong sense of my own self, that survival instinct. I think that my belief in God had a lot to do with it, and my belief in myself and my talent had a lot to do with it. You
Self-centered
have to love
belief.
yourself. I mean, it's not about being self-centered and about ego for me.
No, I mean self-centered belief.
Yeah, I think that defines it pretty well, and I think that while in that state, I knew I was in a bad state, but I always viewed it as being a temporary state. And in a way, I viewed myself, it forced me to look at something internally, emotionally for me at a very, very deep level that I knew that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want to be unhappy anymore, that I basically was a happy person, and that the choices that I had made in my life were terribly wrong, and I didn't want to make those mistakes anymore. So for me, I made my priority myself, which is to get myself healed and well, and I not only got involved in self-hypnosis, but I also got involved in doing intense analysis 3 times a week.
Analysis.
Yeah, that became my job. Fix me.
Fix you.
David.
Yeah.
Let's get David well, and then everything else happens.
Well, look at you. You're going to be 50 next year, and you're in
No, 49 next year.
49 next
Give
year?
me a break.
All right, we have to edit that out. We're going to be 49 next year. You'll postpone 50 as long as possible.
Thank you.
Believe me, I know the feeling. And you're in tremendous physical shape. What's your routine? I mean,
I eat lobster with you every day, baby.
I'm eating steak and getting a little wider as we go. So what's your routine for staying in shape?
Well, for the last 6-7 years straight, until 45 days ago, I was performing 8 shows, 10 shows a week, literally without. I think I figured it out. I'd only taken 3 days off in between those. The day I closed in Blood Brothers after doing it on Broadway and a national tour, and in England and Toronto, I came out here and began reworking effects. So the answer is my work has kept me in shape.
You work yourself
And
in
I,
shape.
I hate to work out. I don't know how you are about it. I hate to work out, but I do it begrudgingly.
And
now.
what is a workout? What's a David Cassidy workout?
I'll do like dips. I'll do some stomach work and mostly stretching work.
Like yoga type stretching.
That kind of thing. I have a Pilates machine, mostly stretching.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break. We have dessert coming up. I haven't finished do you think that I could take this home in a doggy bag?
No, seriously, you're gonna need a suitcase for that.
Well, the thing is, I have to get it through the airport. They'll think I have somebody's rib cage, in my suitcase. We'll take a break. We'll come back right after this. And at the Palm in Las Vegas, Nevada, there is the apple pie. Of course, we all know pie eating is my hobby. You've got your fruit, David Cassidy, and key lime pie.
Yeah, I decided to step up a little bit.
For women everywhere, are you happily married?
I am.
How's your personal life? I know you live here in Las Vegas.
It's actually, like I suppose all of us, as we go along the road, it couldn't be better right now.
Good.
Yeah, it's really good. My son is very, very happy living here. My wife and I live here. And the schools in Las Vegas are great.
How old are your children?
My daughter's 11, 12.
12.
And my son is 8. He just turned 8. And he lives with us. And he's into baseball.
I love
Big time. A big, huge Yankee fan, because I am, of course. And growing up in New York as a kid.
You happy with the trade, the Roger Clemens trade?
Well, I love David Wells, and to break up the chemistry, but Clemens is arguably the best pitcher in baseball.
At this point.
So, yeah, it has been. I mean, how many other guys out there have got 5 Cy Youngs? Not many.
No.
None, in fact.
He's
I mean, he's a great professional, and I hope that the chemistry isn't broken up. That's my concern about it, and I would have loved to have kept Homer Bush, because I thought he had a great potential, and as you can tell, I'm a big Yankee fan and a big baseball fan.
You know your Yankees, for sure.
I do, yeah.
Well, I got one for you. I want you to open up the living room of your house. It's a fantasy question. I want you to assemble a fantasy jam session. You're the lead singer. You put together these musicians, any musicians living or passed on. You're the lead singer, and you can play lead guitar. Who do you want next to you playing lead guitar at your fantasy jam session?
Wow. I only get one?
You take two. We'll give you 2 lead guitars, and we'll hit bass, drums, keyboard, and a backup vocal.
Well, I'd have to say Lennon playing rhythm guitar.
All right, Lennon on rhythm guitar.
And I'd have to have Hendrix play.
That's straight out lead, okay.
Play Hendrix.
All right.
I never got to meet him.
I'm getting exciting. This is good. Okay, so we got Lennon and Hendrix, rhythm and lead.
Right.
Let's move over to bass.
That's a tough call because all through the years, you know, I played with so many great bass players. I mean, it's hard for me to. I played with a great bass player back in mid '70s. I'd have to say maybe Willie Weeks, who's now been down in Nashville for many years and great studio player. There's so many great ones.
Stick with Willie. We got Willie on bass. Okay.
Willie Weeks.
All right.
Yeah,
now
that's
let's
a
move.
good
That's who are we putting on the drum set?
I played with the best, Hal Blaine. I played with Jim Gordon, probably either Hal Blaine or Jim Gordon. I put on drums.
Keyboards. That is, you can have it.
Anybody.
You can put anybody on keyboards. Anybody you want, living or dead. Anybody who's hit the.
Well, you know, it depends on the style. If we're playing rhythm and blues,
like
if we're
R&B,
playing-
like
if we're playing that stuff,
yeah, like Old Trick New Dog.
it's a very, very tough call. I mean, I gotta say that there are so many guys that play so many great different styles. Let me think about that for a second.
Billy Preston, maybe.
Billy's a great player.
All right.
You know, so many of those guys can play. I mean, Elton's a great player.
Elton can put Elton John in. Come on.
Put Elton.
A little costuming on the bench.
Yeah.
Any backup vocals? Any other vocalists you want to work with?
There are 1,000 of them that are no longer with us, and a ton of them that are still alive. I mean, I've been very lucky to be able to play and sing and perform with a lot of great ones. But you know, Marvin Gaye for me is the greatest.
Marvin Gaye.
Sam
Wow.
Cooke, Marvin Gaye.
Ooh.
I love Ray Charles. I love Tony Bennett. But none of those guys are going to be singing background for me. So
No, this is your fantasy thing in your living room. You made it happen.
in my living room, that would be the jam session. with those
That's the
guys.
jam session.
Yeah.
What's the best advice anybody ever gave David Cassidy in his life?
My father probably gave me the best advice, and he said, I remember he came to see me at Wembley in London, and there were, you know, I don't know how many thousands of people there, and it was chaotic. And he said to me, he pulled me aside as I was in that silly jumpsuit, or one like it.
The white one.
Not that one in particular, but I had a couple. And he said, I'm going to tell you something. In a few years, this is all going to be gone. And I said, yeah, I know, because I'm leaving it next year. I'm doing one more year, and I did. And he said, but when it's all over and all this subsides, it's going to get very difficult for you. And I want you to remember that as somebody who's been struggling for 30 years, the only thing I knew is that talent will survive, and that you have it. Don't ever, ever forget it. And no matter how difficult it gets, hold on to that, because you have it, you always have the ability to come back. And
Wonderful advice.
thank God he gave it to me.
Now, you had a terrible estrangement from your father. When your father tragically died, it changed your life. You wailed with grief. What do you say to somebody who's watching, who is estranged from a parent right now? The parent's alive.
If that parent's alive, and I've given this advice to a number of other people, imagine today if you could no longer ever communicate with that person. Imagine if you no longer had the ability to communicate. Is it something, are your differences so great and so vast that you can't find a way to pick up the phone and say, no matter what happens, I want you to know that I love you and that I appreciate whatever you've done for me. And I can't, because we can't have a relationship, just to be able to say that. I wish I could have one 5-minute session with him just to say all the stuff, good and bad.
Get it
Would have
out.
loved to say it, and thank you for all the gifts I got. But because, I mean, I was 26 at the time he died, and we hadn't talked in 9 months, as a lot of friends of his didn't talk with him, you know? He was alcoholic, and he was really in a bad way, in a bad state of mind, as was I, in my own. And he had a lot of problems with my success. But I love him and revered him. I loved him when he was alive, and I felt, I think that because he left my mom and I when I was young, I always felt kind of abandoned. I was always afraid of him, that if I told him what I really felt, he would
Get
never
even
wanna
further
say it.
away.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, David, if we could move forward 10 years, another decade of our lives have passed since we first met in 1972, right? It's 10 years hence. What do you want to be able to say about the 10 years of your life that's passed. You come back to this table, God willing, we're both healthy and well.
Lobster's still good.
If you could be anywhere in the world tonight
Yeah.
with your wife for a nice dinner, any place, anywhere, where would you like to be tonight for dinner? Beam you up, beam you down.
Anyway,
Anywhere in the world.
I'd have to go tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
For
you don't,
dinner?
For dinner, you don't have to work. You have nothing to do tomorrow. Where would you like to be for dinner tonight?
I'd like to go to Miami Beach to Joe's Stone Crabs. And if you're down there and you're watching this and you have any opportunity to go,
Give me a sentence describing David Cassidy, really when we first met in 1972, Partridge Family, touring, and David Cassidy now at the end of the 90s.
David Cassidy in 1972.
Yeah, about David Cassidy then and about David.
Insane, crazed, and without much of a clue. 99, insane, crazed, and a little bit more of that clue.
It takes time to become enlightened, for sure.
Well,
you know.
I'm just still a student of human nature. And here we are. This has been really, really fun. I've really enjoyed it. And a heck of a meal. I'll get the check.
No, and me, I get to pick up the check. I want you, we close all our shows with a toast from the guests right to the viewers.
Oh, good.
So we do an iced tea toast. What would you like to say to them?
I'll be singing in all the... What am I doing?
You were singing.
I was singing. Come to Las Vegas. Come and see me in Las Vegas. And if you get a chance, don't ever eat lunch with this guy. He never shuts up.
That's true. But I didn't have any spinach in my teeth.
Yeah,
Thank you once again, David
Thank you.
Cassidy from the Palm in Las Vegas. Thanks for bringing us here. Terrific spot.
Pretty good spot, huh?
Yeah. Now, may I have one of those rather large strawberries? The fork is headed in that direction.
Go ahead.
Great.